everybody. I would like to bring the Troy Downtown Development Authority regular meeting to order for Wednesday, April 21st, 2021 at 9:16 a.m. So everybody, appreciate everybody getting online. I would like to start, if I can, before we do a roll call, to introduce David Stone. David is a new board member. He's a founding partner of Tryon Solutions in the 888 building. And welcome aboard, David.
Thank you.
Look forward to your contributions.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you.
Yep, our pleasure. And I would say then we should do a roll call. Lori, I guess.
Yep, I can do that. Thank you. Chair Alan Kurlick.
Here.
Vice Chair Tim Blair.
Here.
Mayor Ethan Baker.
I am here.
Cheryl Bush, who said that she is unable to attend today. Larry Kiesling.
Here.
Martin Nolenberg.
Here.
Dan McLeish.
Here.
Ward Randall. I do not hear him here. Ernest Reschke. I do not hear anything here. Kenny Koza.
Here.
Tara Thompson-Husak, who is going to try and join us later. Douglas Schroeder. I don't hear anything. And welcome once again, David Stone.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, this is Mark Miller. Just a reminder to the board and the mayor that I do believe Ward Randall has submitted a letter of resignation and will not be attending any more meetings.
Okay, yeah, and that's too bad. Ward's been a great guy for a lot of years, and we'll miss him. So if I can, maybe you can have Beth give me a number. I'll give him a call on behalf of the board.
Okay.
Just the reason for it is because he's moved to the west side of the state. So I don't know.
Oh, good. It's not a health condition. Great. So you have in your package a resolution to conduct electronic meeting. What we required to do here is we have to adopt this and we have to act on it. So with that, I would take a motion.
So moved.
To adopt. Second. We have a second, Larry?
Second.
Thank you.
I do a second.
Okay, Marty. Any discussions? Those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that's taken care of. Laura, all right. Okay, so now we have the approval of the minutes for January 20th. Do we have any corrections, clarifications? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? Those in favor, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good.
And for the secretary, it was Nolenberg and McLeish that seconded.
That's what I got. Thank you. Thank you for confirming that.
All right. We don't have any what's referred to as old business, but we have several items under the new business. And the first item is going to be the 21-22 budget. And Rob and Mark, I assume you gentlemen will present.
Yes. Yes, Chair, I'll start off and then turn it over to Chief Financial Officer Rob Melzak. So before you have the annual budget, which actually includes a 3-year budget. As we kind of knew when we submitted our annual audit and review in January, we knew then that because of COVID, the DDA's revenues were going to go down slightly in this budget year. But we are still projecting that to increase. Well, now that I'm talking about valuation of properties, I would like to note that the city assessor, who has been a city employee for over 40 years, Nina Wakaria, is retiring. And so for those of you who don't know it, assessing is a very unique animal, and given our size and our valuation, we need the highest level rated assessor that the state authorizes or gives a license to. So we're in the process of doing recruitment to fill that position, which is very important relationship between what the assessor does and how your revenues are computed. So this budget really is not, I don't like using words like status quo, but there really is not a lot of change. Currently, the Downtown Development Authority is authorized to do a limited number of tasks. That would be one, first, to service our bond debt. And you also may want to recall that the DDA did receive from the Forbes company a approximately $4 million revenue that had been in an agreement in place for many years, and we used a good portion of that money, just over $3 million, to write down the debt and then refinance it for a lower rate, which so therefore is increasing our annual revenues because our debt payments are reduced. So this budget does represent that. Also, the DDA is limited to doing maintenance in the right-of-way along Big Beaver and some marketing and administrative costs. Later this meeting, we'll talk a little bit about amending the DDA plan to increase their responsibility and authorities. At this point, I think I am going to turn it over to Chief Financial Melzek to finish up.
Thank you, Mark. I just wanted to say thank you to the board. The decisions that you made to refinance the debt were very successful. And then to take those over $3 million and write down the debt, it helped protect the city as well. So at the end of this fiscal year, we'll have $10.5 million remaining in debt. But what this really has done is it's lowered our debt service each year by about $400,000, as Mark had mentioned. So when you look at why this is so important, if you go back in time, when we had the Great Recession, we lost a lot of revenue. And this is no different now with COVID in this current year. Nino did a great job of being conservative when we forecasted to you last meeting, and we're actually a little bit higher up in 2022 revenue by over $100,000 from last time we discussed. So when you look at the 3-year budget, after paying off the debt service of approximately $600,000 over the next 3 years, and then also to pay for Big Beaver corridor maintenance at about $300,000 each year, we actually have funds. So this is really good news, as with the payment down of the debt, this organization, the DDA, is going to be able to take a step forward and start to do hopefully better things going forward. So when you look at the 3-year budget, we have a $3.5 million projected fund balance at the end of 2022, and that grows all the way to $5.6 million by the end of 2024. So that said, unless anyone has any questions for myself or Nino, I'll turn it over back to the chairman.
Okay. Anybody have questions? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the budget.
So
We have a
moved.
motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, any further discussions? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so.
Who made the motion and who seconded?
I did. Matt Cleach?
Yeah, and second?
Yes.
Well, who second,
I
Marty?
thought it-
Marty made the second. Okay, Marty seconded. Thank you.
Okay. So we've accepted a budget and good fiscal planning in a good fortunate situation for the board to receive that money. And thank you, Tim. Tim's Blair's organization's the one that wrote the check to the DDA. So
Yeah, there you go.
you like that, huh, Tim?
Well, I mean, kind of like contractually obligated to write it, but there you
I
go.
know.
I mean, but I appreciate the thanks.
But you know, if we had bad people, they'd be jerking us around, right?
There you go.
So that's good. We appreciate it. So, okay, next matter is the landscaping. Item number B, so the landscaping at Big Beaver 75. Mark?
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'll kind of give an I-75 update. So as everyone knows, we're having the reconstruction of I-75 and the DDI, diverging diamond intersection of Big Beaver underneath I-75. I drove through there, I think Monday, and all the lanes were open, so what we start to realize is when they open up these DDIs, they don't open up all the way because 14 Mile is just starting to open up. And so once the contractor for MDOT completes probably later this summer, the project, then it's going to convert over to the MDOT's landscaping project, which is a separate bid package and everything. So with that being said, we have had a positive influence on our budgets and revenues. So therefore, we're looking at, recognizing that the existing landscaping is a couple decades old, and it needs to be redesigned and amended. And with Kurt Bobensee, our Public Works Director, who is here if you have any questions, we do have a draft RFQ for landscape design services, and we're bouncing it off the chairman and some also larger entities on in the DDA to get their input. So you would expect in the future, if the DDA wants to continue down this road, because another item coming up is the revision of the DDA plan, which will allow for us to make the expenditures. We'll continue and bring this forward to release the RFQ to try to find a highly qualified group to do landscape design services in what you have to recognize is a pretty harsh environmental area, because it's in a major right-of-way with traffic doing 45, 50, and a lot of salt spray. Kurt, if you want to add anything to that, feel free, but you don't have to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. As Mark mentioned, just going back to the MDOT landscaping, just to be clear, the MDOT landscaping plan does not contemplate the medians within the DDI. It only contemplates the interchanges and the trunk line itself along I-75. We met back in March, was our last meeting with MDOT to kind of look at the plan. And unfortunately, we were informed that the plan was reduced almost by $1 million. And that was a direct result in the care that the plantings would take in years 4 and 5. So they had to reduce the number of plantings down to about 4,500 plantings throughout the corridor in Troy. So we can expect not a very robust planting landscape plan from MDOT, and we really look forward to the opportunity to revitalize that area with the DDA and augment some of those planting that's MDOT's doing.
Kurt? This is Dan McLeish. I was wondering, can we get a copy of that proposed landscape plan that they have set up?
Yeah, I'm sure we can coordinate. I think we've sent out the most recent plan to Chairman Kurlick's office, but we can coordinate that with City Engineer Hootery to get the most recent plan out to the board.
Chair, this is Mark Miller. I would rather have the chairman, who has reviewed it on his own, kind of explain the extent of the landscaping, because I know the chairman has a strong opinion on the MDOT landscape plan.
Yeah. So what I can do is let us know who would like to get a copy of it, and we'll share it. But it's really kind of embarrassing, frankly. Dan, you'll climb out of your chair. I mean, all they're doing, I mean, when you get a design build program, from a road builder, no disrespect, you just can't expect much, right? And now I may be wrong, but that's my perception, and Kurt, correct me, but It's just a bunch of sticks, and there are a lot of them, and maybe in 10 years or so they'll become something meaningful, but they're like more or less like a 2-inch caliper trees, right? Maybe 2.5, and they're just all over, but there's no character. There's the specimen change is kind of mixed up so that if one tree is vulnerable to some sort of an insect, you don't wipe out the whole interchange. But if you look at what you have at Square Lake and I-75, that's essentially what they're doing. And I've been having contact with Mark and team, and MDOT's just pushing back, and they're telling us, hey, this is what you're getting, and if you want to do something, propose something later, but we're not going to inject a redesign with the funds we have allocated there. So that we just have to let them do what they're doing, and then do what we would like to consider supplementing, and so forth. So don't expect much at all. Yeah, just look at Square Lake and look at those slopes, and that's what you're going to get. So,
hey, Chair, this is the mayor. Can I just speak up for one quick sec? Would you
go
mind?
ahead, Mayor. Sure.
I think this is, without being too political, but I think this is pretty typical of what happens coming out of Lansing. Certainly the economic indicators have all changed because of COVID, but the first place they're going to cut is coming into a local city, and they're going to put it all on us to try to make the difference of what we have. So I think we're very right to not expect, even what they're offering now, we should probably expect something worse. In my opinion, we need to be prepared on this board and as the city to really make it look like how we want it to look. And obviously that takes some timing and planning, but take the bare minimum from them to be fully prepared to do what we feel is best for our city, because we're going to be the ones that have to pay for it. We're also going to be the ones that are going to see it every day. So I think we need to recognize that and be very bold in what we do.
Yeah, I think Mayor's right on. I think that's, the highway department are, they're engineers, and no disrespect, they're looking out for safety and patterns and speeds and curves and so on, right? And merging, and that's just not in their DNA to worry about landscaping. So we can kick it around, but it's not very informative, and it's just it's not at all. It'll take a real computer to open up and see what they're giving us. So if anybody wants it, let us know, right? And Mark, and we can arrange for you to take a look at it. But they're stuck.
Just warning, it's a big PDF.
Yeah,
it's an architectural and engineering type drawings.
I ended up printing it on like the architectural CAD machine that we have internally at Kirko, and we had to do it in big sheets so I could really read it. And so we're happy to kick it around. But
Yeah, this is Marty. I'd like a copy if somebody could forward that to me. I had a couple quick questions though. So I guess as I look at that interchange, I see two things. I see the view heading northbound and southbound in I-75. And I also see eastbound, westbound on Big Beaver Road. And so I guess my question is does the plan utilize, both, all four corners, if you will? I mean, does it incorporate the Big Beaver Road, or is it just I-7, just the interchange itself? I guess when I see the plan, I guess I'll know better. But
well,
you're probably more knowledgeable of the plan than I am in detail. I think it does not include the interchange at all.
Right. It's just a slope. The upside of the ditch. But go ahead. Any ditches? Go ahead.
That's correct. It does not. It does not consider or contemplate the cosmetics of the interchange, because with the older interchange, in order to look at the clover leaf, you had to look left or right. With the diverging diamond, as you approach those clover leaves now, you're actually approaching them head on. So you really have a great opportunity to create that to be aesthetically pleasing. And the plan just doesn't contemplate that. This is more of a check the box type of plan that, they're required because of the federal funding to plant something and replace the vegetation that they remove. But it is not an aesthetic plan at all.
Well, the proposal, the RFQ that we're looking to do would include, Big Beaver Road, and also the interchange as you enter or exit I-75. Is that correct?
Chair,
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes, but you will have input into the process, in the design process. So
And I guess
I don't want to be presumptuous to say that we're going to dress it up. It's what the DDA wants, ultimately.
I don't know. I guess, have we actually reached out to our state lawmakers on this? I mean, sometimes they can get funding that we're not aware of. And so if we haven't reached out to them, I think maybe we might want to, I would encourage that. So just something to consider.
Well, Mark and I have discussed that already. I'm on the county task force for dealing with all the funds that the county's going to have and how they're going to be dealt with and used and so forth. And so there may be some opportunities. There may well be some opportunities for use of money. But we've worked on this landscaping issue, I'd say maybe probably 3 years, before the job actually started on I-75. And right, gentlemen, Glenn, Kurt, you guys, and I would push them. They would push the highway department, and then they straight armed you until, well, we're ready. And then when you're ready, they say, well, this is what you're getting, and they're going to finish the job. So, I think where we are, Marty, is when these trees get planted, you'll be able to, so to speak, touch and feel. And then in the course of having a landscape architect assess the corridor as well as the interchange and develop recommendations and tie it to some acceptable budget and plan that the board is prepared to do. But clearly the board, we got a long way to go with it right now.
Could I offer a recommendation real quick? And I apologize if this was already mentioned in the last meeting, but I live nearby Orchard Lake between 14 and 15 Mile. And to me, I love absolutely what West Bloomfield did with all the medians. So if, we could provide what they've done in West Bloomfield as almost inspiration for the Big Beaver corridor, the rock formations, all the shrubbery and everything, I think was just a very, very high level and actually very beautiful. I used to avoid driving down Orchard Lake like the plague, and now I prefer to take it to where I'm going just simply because of the amazing things they've actually done down the medians. I just think it's a beautiful atmosphere now, as before it was a very stale area and nobody really liked Orchard Lake. So if anybody gets the opportunity between now and the next meeting to drive down to West Bloomfield and drive between 14 Mile and 15 Mile, I just think they've done a fantastic job in the medians.
Well, Mark, maybe the township will share some photographs with you of what they've done.
I actually know the township supervisor fairly well.
Great. And maybe, maybe that's an architect that we would put on our requests, RFPs.
How quickly do you envision actually, placing landscaping those on Big Beaver and in that interchange area? Are you looking at a year from now? Are you looking at this fall, 5 years from now? What seems to be the thought process there?
I'll start off, and Kurt, if you want to amend what I say, feel free to. But so we're basically just starting the process, and just having the Downtown Development Authority authorize the release of the request for qualifications. Right now after this, we don't have a meeting till October, so we probably may need to schedule a special meeting once, in the summertime, put it out to bid. So, they probably wouldn't start design work until maybe next year, probably, if once we get through the process. And then once they do the design work, they'll have to be bid out. So things won't be in the ground for, let's say, 2 years or more easily.
Just something to consider. I know Congress is thinking about bringing back earmarks, and so that's another consideration as well. And back 10 years or so ago, congressional men and women were able to fund some of these projects, and so that might be a tool to consider. I know that when I was in the state senate, I was able to get money for Rochester Hills, almost $2 million for their Auburn Hills road section, but they had already had it coordinated with the county and the state, and so it had to be shovel ready. And so you can get money from the state, but typically it needs to be shovel ready. So I just want to put that out there. I mean, typically the state is not going to earmark or allow an appropriation unless unless it's shovel ready. They will not provide money on speculation. Just the same is true for the feds. I just throwing that out there for you. So if you got a little bit of time, that might be something to consider.
Right. I would agree. There's a lot of money going to be moving around, and we have to stay close to it and find out how it would qualify for us. And maybe we can consider kind of phasing the project so that some of the more typical Big Beaver corridor work we can get on earlier, as opposed to the interchange, because I think the interchange is a little more complicated and maybe more costly. But maybe if you would consider a phasing, if that moves things along so that next year plantings can be going in, that's maybe hopeful, but let's give it some thought. Are there any other questions on the landscaping? Okay, there's no action. This is informative. So we're taking care of everything you want to take care of, Mark?
Yes, thank you. I'm ready to move to the next item.
Okay, wonderful. You proceed with the C on the DDA plan amendment.
Thank you. I'll start out with an intro, and the city attorney / legal advisor of the DDA, Lori Grigg Bloom, will also speak on it. So quickly, the DDA was created in the early 90s, and what we're proposing, and in that creation, there's what we call a DDA plan, and the DDA plan is made up of the development plan, the tax increment financing plan. And we're proposing the 8th amendment to the DDA plan, which really only affects the development plan. We're not really affecting the increment in any way. And so this amendment continues to permit servicing the bonds, marketing, maintenance of the landscape, and minor marketing, and also the QDI initiative. But then it also allows for more flexibility in that it will allow funds to implement a greater landscape plan and other type of improvements to the Big Beaver right-of-way. The DDA plan approval process does take a while, and if you approve this today, we'll move it to City Council, and there will have to be a public hearing at Council with very specific timing requirements related to those. And Lori, if you have anything to add, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to specify that, first of all, we needed to make sure that there's a flexibility to allow for this landscaping plan. And previously, it just allowed for maintenance because, again, the primary purpose was to pay back those bonds. So this actually, the way that it's drafted, it allows for any purpose that is provided for under the statute. But again, since City Council has to approve this, we wanted to make sure that the bonds were covered first and foremost. And so what this does is it allows for a reserve, and it allows for annual review by the CFO to make sure that there are adequate reserves so that we make sure that there is enough money to pay off those bonds. So with that, I would just indicate that it requires at least 20 days notice for City Council before City Council can hear it at a public hearing. So we're looking at getting this done as quickly as possible. Another thing also that we needed to at least account for is that we will have residents residing in the district over 100 residents are anticipated to start as of July of this year. And so because of that, we needed to at least indicate that there will be a residential development council. So that is also incorporated in this. And so again, if DDA is happy with this as proposed, then a motion to approve would send it to the city council for the public hearing process. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone else has.
Any questions? If there are no questions, then I get a motion, presumably to approve the DDA 8th Amendment Development Plan. Motion, please, in a second.
So moved.
Okay. Is there
Second.
Okay, Tara, thank you. Thanks for joining us, by the way. Any further questions? If not, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I'll interpret that to mean that was accepted, right? Lori, you're okay with that?
Yeah, I think it looked to me like it was unanimous of all of those persons that were here. So I'm hoping that that's what's reflected in.
Can we, if you don't mind, folks, this is a pretty important document, motion. Would appreciate the favors, those in favor, those opposed, so that we have a good, clear record. Again, those in favor of adopting the 8th Amendment, aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, one nay. And so with that, I take it we're passed. So we've been adopted and it'll be sent on to the city council for consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, regarding the marketing, if you recall, we had a very productive, at least I felt a very productive joint meeting with the city council and our DDA board. We had a lot of good dialogue. We covered a lot of very good, interesting material. And most of all, I thought that created and represented a lot of cooperation between the two bodies and in behalf of the city. And I thought that was awesome. And one of the things that came out of it that seemed of particular interest and appeared to me, and Mayor, he can chime in, or Mark or anybody, but that the marketing was a very important issue for the sustainability of the city, and that it was, in my opinion, circumstances that kind of led to what I'd call being a fever. And so it's just not a good condition on a long-term basis for many reasons. And so on that basis, I have had discussion with Mark, and I'm put together with our staff, the Kirko staff, various material that I plan to present to Mark and Glenn Friday. And they're going to either throw it in a trash can or distribute it or whatever. So bottom line, I'm trying to create a rationale that identifies a condition, quote, a problem, and see what, so to speak, what are some of the best practices in about the country or, Michigan, and then what might be a solution or recommendation, not the final solution, but a recommendation for the next step action plan. And then with that, once it's delivered Friday, it'll be up to the staff and the mayor what they do with it. So that's the plan. It's had a lot of work, and it does identify and come to identifiable, what I'd say, conditions that we should be addressing. So that's where it is. It's essentially done, and at least from my standpoint, then everybody can move forward in whatever manner they want. Any questions? Could
you share that with us, Alan? Maybe send it to us, please?
Yeah. But I felt it
Appreciate
was appropriate, Dan, Mark, just to make sure nobody's offended, embarrassed, or think it's a piece of junk, and so let them take a look at it because they haven't seen anything. But I'm doing it. We got a scheduled meeting Friday, and then certainly it's going to be, in my opinion, it should go to everybody, and then it's up to the mayor if he wants to share it with the council. So, but it's got interesting points. I think you'll see, So, that's it. That's about it for now. That's okay. Okay, can we get to the planning update, Glenn? And Brett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can start.
Planning and development activities, excuse me. Right.
I can start, Mr. Chair. This is Brent Savin, Community Development Director. So to piggyback a little bit on the apartment discussion, Mr. Chairman, you'll recollect in 2006, the DDA worked on and adopted the Big Beaver Corridor Study, which set out to create a world-class corridor for Big Beaver. And you'll recall, Mr. Chairman, that yourself and Mark Miller and myself were on the steering committee, and we worked alongside each other to work on that document. And it was adopted in 2006 by DDA and City Council. It was incorporated into the master plan in 2008. And over the last 15 years, a lot of the recommendations in the plan have been incorporated. Things like filling in vacant parking lots and allowing and encouraging mixed use. And now tonight we've talked about making improvements to the median with landscaping and a lot of these things. So a lot of these different puzzle pieces have come together, and the Big Beaver Corridor has come a long way in 15 years. There's still work to do, but one of the really important elements is residential in the Big Beaver Corridor, because that's what makes it a 24-hour place where you have people coming out at night and actually living in the corridor. And as Lori mentioned, the Zen Apartments, we've got over 100 units coming online in January, and then over 100 units again coming online in November. So that's really the first significant residential development that's going to be developed in Big Beaver. And there's some other projects that I can't talk about because obviously they're not online yet. The specific information can't be shared. But we're having internal dialogue for future apartments and also conversion of some of these office buildings to apartments. So we're going to see more residential coming online in the future in the Big Beaver Corridor, or certainly near the Big Beaver Corridor. And that's only going to help the development and the evolution of the Big Beaver Corridor into a world-class corridor. So that's really all I have, Mr. Chairman. I can answer any questions about the developments, but Glenn's got some other information he'd like to share.
Yeah, as we look at the list here, I mean, not a whole lot has changed from the last time. However, just to point a couple things out, the Kelly Services properties, as you recall, was sold to the Jonas, and there'll be a lease back to Kelly Services on that for their headquarters. The Jonas are working out a mixed-use plan for the property, including residential behind, which is to the south of the headquarter building at the Lindsay Center area. So they're working on that, going through planning. I would expect at some point, because we've had discussions with them, that they will submit for a quality development initiative, QDI, through the DDA at some point for a parking structure that is needed in order to create the kind of density we're trying to achieve at the mixed-use development. So that will be coming forward at some point in the next several months, I would expect. We'll keep you posted on that. Also, I know board member Rakosa is on the line. The Home 2 Hotel is nearing completion. I think the expectation now is probably around September in terms of the opening for that. That is over on Wilshire near Crooks. So that's rolling along. And also some of the new businesses that have opened in recent months, mostly on the restaurant side. Beyond Juice Eatery, which is further down by Rochester Road. Clean Eats on Big Beaver. Kura Revolving Sushi Bar, which is over at the 888 Troy City Center project. and Savvy Sliders, which is taking over for the Starbucks over at at the Big Beaver and Crooks Road. That it has a new, we'll have a new tenant in there as well. So we're seeing, even during these tough times, we're still seeing restaurants opening in this area and also, outside the DDA district as well. So Brent and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the report.
Do you expect residents in July of this year? Is that the correct?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, we're not quite done yet, but by the way, I don't want them to drop off on us. I just wanted to wish Nino best in his journey in life as he's been retired, I understand. And Nino, on behalf of the board, we certainly appreciate all the input and guidance that you've given us over the years in good times and bad times. And you've really done a wonderful job on behalf of the city, in our opinion. You've been great to work with, and God bless you as you take the next step in the journey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are very kind words. I appreciate them deeply. I can't see, our power is out and my internet is out, so I'm using my phone. But I think, I know Ernie's on the board. I'm not sure if he signed in today, but 42 years ago, right about this time, he was interviewing an 11-year-old kid and he took a shot at him. So I'd like to thank him too. But thank you for the kind words.
Yeah, really, you were a great contribution and team member over the years, because it certainly was a lot that we had to rely on those forecasts.
When is that retirement to actually happen?
Larry was a big help too. Thanks, Larry.
He asked, when do you formally retire?
Oh, I'm sorry. April 30th. I'm going to be on the payroll for a lot longer than that. I'm actually going to come up like about 2 days short of 42 years.
Oh boy, wonderful. Well, God bless. So,
thank you.
Wow.
Okay, with that, I'd like to open up for public comment.
We've received no public comment either by email or by phone.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Glenn, for that. So, okay, with that, we'll adjourn today's meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Chair, this is Mark Miller. Just really quick. We may need a special meeting before our scheduled meeting in October. So just keep that in the back of your mind if it comes up. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if you want, think in terms of getting something tentative out there.
All right. Well, I'm just let me think about it.
Okay.
And it won't be until I think it doesn't make sense to have a meeting until after City Council actually takes action on the proposed plan amendment. So that'll be at least, you got at least a month and a half before that'll happen.
Okay. And the landscape plan, landscape consultant, what kind of timing do we expect on that?
Once the plan is approved, what I anticipate is having the Downtown Development Authority review those requests for qualifications and requests for proposals and sort of authorize it to put it out on the street for bids. And then when the bids come in, obviously, you ultimately will select who that firm will be that does the design work.
Okay. All right. With that, thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending. Mayor, thank you for taking your time. And we'll adjourn our meeting. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.